It's working. Hooray! Hooray! How are we all doing? We are joined today by, some lovely guests. Oh, do you know what? I've got to go and mute all of my tabs because I have got myself in my own ears. There we go. I've done it. That's good. How very unprofessional. If anybody else on this panel has got the same thing, just go and unmute the tabs at the top in Chrome. Joined today by, well, we've had two of the people on before, but one of them is brand new to us. We have Miriam Schwab. Have I pronounced that right, Miriam? Is it Schwab?
You did. It is Schwab. Good job.
Okay. And Miriam's going to tell us a little bit about what it is that she does in a moment. It's quite an exciting and I think new kind of emergent field in WordPress. It's all to do with hosting, but she, as you can see by the strap line under her picture, she works for, well, she doesn't work for, I think she began Stratic. So she'll tell us all about that. But down there, we have Paul Lacey from the Dicky Bird Studio. How are you doing, Paul? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. We're talking like we haven't spoken, but we were talking an hour ago, weren't we?
Yeah.
We didn't say Happy New Year, I don't think. So
No. So we're doing it now.
Straight into deep business.
In public. Yeah, that's great. And down there, we've got Jan Koch, who I think now, Jan, I'm going to introduce you as the guy behind WP, the WP agency whole thing, the summit that you put on recently. WP Agency Summit. The huge summit. Tell us how that went. How was it?
It was really well, and I was blown away by how well it was received, actually. So we had over 2,000 registrations, which is crazy to me. It's almost like the WordCamp US. That's really good. And feedback has been great. Sponsors have been approaching me, so I didn't even have to ask like Automatic or Weglot or something. They all came to me, which was very comfortable for me, to be honest. And overall, I just appreciate the support that I've received from the community. Like, it wasn't perfect, certainly wasn't, but people were willing to tolerate these small glitches. So thanks for that.
I think it's fair to say that if you aim for perfection, you are likely to fail. But having something which you're happy with in the end is great. Oh, I'm so pleased it went well. There was a lot of build-up, and it looked like you were getting some really serious traction. So that's fabulous. So I'm going to return to the person that we mentioned first of all, which was Miriam, because Miriam's not been on the live news or indeed the podcast before. But she, as you can see on her little banner, she has a company called Stratic, and I just thought, why not allow Miriam a little bit of time at the beginning to explain what Stratic is, what they do, what's different, and why it's kind of interesting because it's new. So Miriam, tell us about Stratic.
Okay, so I'll give a little bit of the origin story, which is that I founded and managed a WordPress development agency here in Israel for 13 years. And through my work in this agency and with our clients, I became very familiar with all the benefits of WordPress, which we all know, and also the major challenges related to security, performance, and scalability. And because this is my field, I'm always trying to learn and stay up to date on what's going on in the world of web development. And I started to become really excited about the idea of static site generators. Explored them a bit to see whether that's a good option, and realized that they also have major challenges. It demands people learning whole new systems. The development process is much more complicated. The tools aren't as robust, and of course doesn't have an amazing community around it like we do. So I thought, why not bridge these two worlds and get the best of both worlds by turning WordPress essentially into a static site generator, which means that users can continue to use WordPress as they're used to. They can use plugins, they can build themes that they're used to, and then they just click a button and they get a perfect static output. And the benefit of the static output is static, not meaning not dynamic, right? It can still have all the dynamic functionality pretty much. It just means that there's no underlying database and processing server, which removes basically all of the issues related to security, right? The attack surface is reduced by like 99.99% or whatever. And performance always increases just out of the box without changing anything. We serve it up through a CDN, so you get that benefit. And scalability is a major benefit as well. You don't have to worry about getting an influx of traffic and provisioning servers and everything around it. It scales essentially infinitely. So that was the concept, and it ended up becoming Stratic, which is the company that I founded and I'm now the CEO of.
Did you get to the point yet where you're kind of like open for business, or are we still in some sort of like holding pattern, beta phase, alpha phase? Where are you at with all that?
So now we're in a beta phase where our product it works and is stable, and we have production sites on it. But we're still handpicking the sites that we onboard to make sure that they're compatible with what we can support and things like that. But pretty soon we're going to be opening up a little bit more so that users can sign up and get a beta code pretty quickly, rather than now where they might have to wait and things like that.
Ah, right. Okay. So we go to Stratic with, the typical double T .com.
By the way, I didn't even realize that the double T was a thing until Matt mentioned it to me.
Yeah. You know what?
I hadn't thought of it.
I've been talking about WordPress for several years now, and it was only about 4 months ago that I actually figured out why there were 2 T's in automatic.
In automatic. So that that I knew, but the reason I chose 2 T's was because I was doing the typical company/domain availability search, and I came up with a bunch of word variations. And at first I tried Stratic with 1 T, but the domain was taken, the .com, and then I tried double T and it was available.
Right.
And that's how we ended up with
That's how it went. I'm just going to quickly share my screen because I sort of failed to do it until this point. Let's go for that one. That looks about right. Yeah, perfect. And then hopefully everybody can see my screen. Just a quick thing. WP Builds is a WordPress kind of, I don't know what to call it really. It's kind of like a podcast network. We do news every Monday. That's what you're listening to now. I do an audio version of this. It's already been out for several hours where I just give my take on it. And then obviously do a podcast on Thursday. If you go here, click on this little news archive link, then you'll get to this page. That's actually the podcast archive. That was hopeless, wasn't it? Let's click on the actual link and get to where we should be. There we go. And we're closing in on 100 news episodes. This is the one for today. And if I open that one up over here, then we'll be able to see what it is that we're talking about today. So if you want to follow along, do what I just said. Go to the archives, news archive, and click the one at the top left, number 95. And this is the one that we're on about. And as always, I share the stories that we're going to be talking about before the podcast actually begins. And some people have sort of stepped up and said they'd like to take certain things on. I think there's one big story that we're going to talk about largely today, but let's just dwell on a couple of the smaller ones. The first one that I want to share, I don't know if this is going to affect any of you guys, but I guess it's an interesting one if you're making themes. Color picker. We have a color picker now, which is going to be in the customizer. How very exciting. Did anybody lose any sleepless nights because there wasn't a color picker? I very much doubt it. But anyway, there we go. Justin Tadlock, who writes, as we've discussed just before pressing record, about 19 articles a day, has written all about the color picker. So yeah, kind of cool, I suppose. It's coming into the customizer very soon. It's built, I believe, on React, because they eschewed whatever the previous I don't know which library they were using, but they've gone for that. Anybody want to talk about that? I doubt it very, very much.
It feels like it's news similar to when Internet Explorer 6 wasn't a thing anymore.
That's
so
right.
It's kind of,
yeah.
We've now got alpha picker, alpha color picker in there and everything. It's nice to see something in the customizer in the news rather than the block editor say, yeah, customizer is not completely dead from their point of view at the moment, I suppose.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it seems like there's less and less news about themes, and it's all going into blocks, which we'll come to in a minute. However, let's go on to the community section. Yeah, so there was basically nothing happening in WordPress core over the last couple of weeks because it was the holiday period, and so yeah, been pretty slow. So let's go to this one instead, though. I could have picked, I don't know, maybe 20 articles this year about reviews, the year in review, but I went for this one. This is the WP Tavern one, and in this one, I think maybe Miriam, this is what you were referring to just before we began, about WP Tavern and how much stuff Justin Tadlock is actually doing. this is just a really nice way of seeing in one fairly easy 10-minute read what's happened in WordPress this year. 16 years old, got 3 point releases, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3. We had, sadly, Alex Mills passed away. He was fighting leukemia, and that he was the author of Regenerate Thumbnails, which I bet every single person has used at some point. Raise your hand if you've used Regenerate Thumbnails. Okay, there we go.
I just want to talk about another one of his plugins that he was one of the first kind of leaders in WordPress way back when I started as well. And he was inspiring, and he was always creating these very useful plugins that were like magic because they enabled us to do things without development, right? That was the big excitement about plugins. And one of our favorites that we were using on all sites that we built at that time was his video quick tags plugin. Because that was the time when, if you wanted to embed a YouTube video in WordPress, the editor would strip out all the whatever surrounding code, and you would end up with a video that didn't work. And he had this really simple plugin that made it easy to embed a video, and it was awesome and exciting. And then, of course, he phased it out because WordPress now supports native embeds, and it's really easy. But it's also, he was an example of how our community is driven by the community, meaning our product is driven by the community. So he and others would develop plugins for needs that they saw, and then eventually they would be rolled into the core. And he was really a leader in that way, and he was inspiring to me. And it was like, I didn't really know him, but he really played a big role in my career and me choosing this direction. And it was sad to hear about him passing. So I'm glad that he's mentioned. I think he totally deserves it. He really was one of the drivers in the beginning of our community, and yeah, he was an amazing person. So.
It's almost as if you and Justin have a very similar experience, because he writes a very similar thing. You know, Alex, writing here, Alex was a mentor and a hero to many of us. As a developer, I learned more from his work than I maybe ever be able to pay forwards. We never met in person, but he was one of my early teachers by simply leading the way for people like me. Yeah, that's exactly it. I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot about thinking about a product and what is needed. I learned a lot about open source and jumping in to fill in a need. Yeah, he was really one of the leaders. So yeah, I confess, other than using the Regenerate Thumbnail plugin, I don't have any experience of him. But obviously, you and Justin share that. So, some sad news. WP Tavern then goes, well, we end up talking about some of the things that have happened in WP Tavern, including Justin's kind of taking over, obviously, earlier this year. I'm going to say about 5 months ago. It feels like it was about 5 months ago. He took over and has been writing prodigiously ever since then. I'm loving the fact that he's introduced sort of like code reviews into his articles. I think that's really cool. His highlights of the year actually is that is to say, from the WP Tavern point of view, which, by the way, if you look up here, is no longer called WP Tavern. Look, it's called WordPress Tavern. His highlight is writing about the Domino's story. There was this story, when was it? It doesn't matter. It was in 2019, where the US Supreme Court had to determine whether accessibility was in fact important and required. And he thought that was something that he enjoyed writing on this year. So yeah, favorite thing.
Well, that's a major story.
Yeah,
I mean that is definitely going to change how people view accessibility. It was always something like, well, we should maybe kind of, but now when there's a serious financial fine that can be paid for this, then people are going to be taking it more seriously. And I think that's better for everyone. In Israel, we actually have an accessibility law where any business-related website is supposed to be accessible, AA accessible. So, and I know the EU has some regulations, but generally it's related to government websites. But hopefully we're going to see a push towards greater accessibility across the board because of that. It's quite groundbreaking.
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah. Favorite theme was 2020. Favorite plugin. This is a nice one. I like this. We use this over on WP and Up, or at least Dan uses it to create the way of providing donations into WP and Up. Give WP. He just thought it was a really nice plugin. He's played with it and he thought it was hyper coded, hyper well coded, super documented, and so on. So anyway, just a lovely, lovely little article. Paul or Jan, do you want to contribute? Is anything caught your eye in there?
There was something on the accessibility one, but I think I've forgotten what I wanted to say.
Oh, oh, that
I
bomb.
literally had something. Oh yeah, I remember now. Sorry. So I wonder what this means. You know, when you have like Twitter or Facebook, and then something happens bad on one of those platforms, and people say, is it the individual who posted that, or is it the platform's responsibility and all that sort of stuff? So it makes me think about things like Wix and Squarespace and WordPress, less so because it's open source, but WordPress.com, you could say, who's responsible when a website is created on, for instance, Squarespace or Wix, to say that this website should be fully accessible?
That's a good point.
That's a good point.
I don't know what the answer is. It was just something I was thinking about, because I know the more that the laws are enforced, the better for everyone, obviously. But I wonder what it means to these platforms. Do they just create a terms and condition that gets them out of it, or I don't know.
I mean,
Also,
at the moment, I think, sorry.
You carry on, Miriam.
I think the laws, they're like, legally, it's not clear how much of a requirement it is. But actually, with those types of platforms, being as they're a closed garden, Squarespace more so than Wix. With Wix, you can drag and drop and create who knows what. Their code is really something, kind of messy. But Squarespace being a closed garden, they could theoretically make their themes and what they allow users to do on their platform accessible. It's easier for them in a way.
Yeah, I suppose also it's a bit of there must be some sort of sliding scale in terms of at what level it needs to be accessible. Which aspects of the code that's output need to be accessible. Is it literally every single thing, or is there like a minimum standard that you've got to reach? And the answer is I don't know. I didn't follow up on that story because it was US centric in this case, and obviously being based in Europe, it
will spread. And one of the problems is with whether it's a GDPR law or online accessibility, is that no one is fully clear on what they all mean, and the only time that you kind of get some clarity is when someone is prosecuted in court. So it would be great that there was an official, because even the accessibility guidelines are completely open to interpretation. They're guidelines rather than law, and then the law might say follow the guidelines, but then someone in a court of law can interpret a guideline in a different way and put a case forward for that. I don't know. It's a tough one. It'd be interesting where we are in 10 years' time.
Accessibility is a very complicated issue, because on the one hand, we all, I think, aspire to it. On the other hand, it's incredibly difficult to implement. And like you're saying, there's a lot of interpretation there, like a lot on different levels and in different aspects of it, to the point of, if your alt tag on your image isn't clear enough, but you've put an alt tag, are you accessible? And it's like kind of like a bottomless pit. It's really complicated.
We've also had quite a lot of legislation in the EU that kind of didn't really have too many teeth. We had this like cookie legislation, and then we had GDPR, both of which, although apparently having lots of teeth, they never kind of bit anybody after the fact. So one would hope that this would have some more teeth, and the high profile companies that can afford to do it lead the way, and show us what's possible. I feel like I've neglected the comments a little bit, because we've had a few people saying hello. I'm just going to show some of those. Vito Peleg, who I know.
Hey, Vito.
Hey, saying what an awesome. Leo Mindell has joined us, but I think he's literally. But I think he's on a ski slope, actually skiing.
He's taken a break just to listen to us. So
that's dedication. Thank you, Leo.
Andrew listening from the car.
That's Andrew Palmer listening from the car. Andrew from Elegant Marketplace.
Ronald is there as well.
So the cloud. Oh, that's nice.
Kyle is there. Beth.
This is a new face. I don't know Joel. So hello, Joel. Joel Mercado. Hi, nice to meet you. Hopefully we'll have you as a regular listener. Ronald's there. Leo Mindell. What's he saying? Taking a break from snowboarding, but listening from Bulgaria. Leo, honestly, what are you doing? Get back on the skis, mate.
Kyle Van Duzen is there, and I think he was saying how interested he is in Static.
Okay, so let me see.
I think that's I think his comment was when you were talking about the static and engine of how your project works.
Right.
But who was that? I didn't hear what you said.
Kyle Van Dusen.
Oh, okay.
He runs the Admin Bar podcast, so he's definitely somebody to get in touch with.
Kyle, you can find me on Twitter and Facebook, and I'm happy to chat about it. It's my
Yeah.
favorite topic.
Yeah, that's great. Who else have we got? We've got David McCann. Hi, David. That's nice. Peter Lewitt. Yeah, there we go. Carl's saying yes. Sounds really interesting. So that's
great.
good. Right,
So
we will come back to God, they just keep coming, don't they? Look at this. Hello from India. Oh, hello from India. Piyush Patel. Sorry for mashing everybody's names. I'm really sorry. Okay, let's take the comments away and get back to the articles in question. So the next one that I wanted to talk about, well, Justin Tadlock appears to be dominating the feed today. He wrote this article about building the community that we deserve. Now, obviously, I'm involved quite heavily with WP and Op, which is trying to help the WordPress community. But this is more about kind of comment policy. And on WP, I'm not going to say it, I'm going to say WordPress Tavern. They decided a little while ago that they were going to kind of essentially moderate every single comment that came in and only allow manual things to get through, because I can't remember the exact terminology he used, but he said a lot of it is conspiracy theory bunkum, he was saying. So they just took the policy to get rid of all of it, but he wants that to move on. He wants to engage the community, and I think he's doing a great job. Wants to engage the community, maybe at some point let the floodgates open and let the let comments be automated, like they can disable them after the fact. And they've got this new thing called Ask the Bartender, which you can use. You can maybe go and check that out. But I just thought it was a nice article about new year, new approaches, new community. And they have there's on some posts you get absolutely loads of comments like this one, and then on other posts on WP Tavern you only get one or two. So anyway, good luck with that, I would say. I
feel like that topic of like friendly and respectful commenting is just the eternal internet discussion. And there will
don't
always
look
be,
at Reddit.
Don't look at Reddit, don't look at YouTube comments. Just shield your eyes. I mean, I totally respect his that post, and I wish for all of us that we could achieve another respectful internet, and maybe they'll succeed with that there. Just it's an uphill battle.
Speaking of community and things like that, I think maybe it was you, Jan. Is it you that wanted to comment up on this article? So this just felt to me like so timely, what with everything that I'm involved with, how to stay healthy as a web developer. I don't know about you. I sit in a chair. I sit with my face locked, basically chained to a screen, not enough exercise, bad diet, all of that stuff. And then the Christmas period in the UK, there's a lot of excess. So this is a nicely timed article by Tom Rankin where he goes through 6. Now, they're not groundbreaking, but they are timely reminder of nice things to do to yourself, with yourself, in order to make life a bit easier. So Jan, what did you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to share my experience. I have a fixed standing desk for like 2 years now. So I'm standing while I'm working. And that has been a huge game changer for me. So I'm rebuilding the office space right now, and I will have like a motorized up and down standing desk. But just getting up, standing, being able to just, like I'm doing now, move around a little bit, not just helps with concentrating, but it also dramatically changed how much better my back is. I was working in a chair for the past 5 years before I got this desk. And I had like these back issues, and I had to have massages, and I had to do some stretching and some fitness basically to just keep my back healthy. And within like 2 months or something, after changing to the standing desk and going through miserable pain of not being used to standing all day, my back is totally fine right now. So that's something.
Wow.
And it's super cheap to build. Like you can get these cheap IKEA desk and put IKEA desk stands, legs, and put a little desktop on there and just build something myself. That's how I did it, like under 100 euros or something like that. Or you can get one of these risers that you put on a regular desk so that you can work in standing height. And I think it's a really good hack to just have somewhere where in your office when you're working, somewhere a place to work standing. This
is interesting because it's getting loads of comments, this. Kyle, I don't know Kyle knows that I sit in the
Show us the chair, Nathan. Show us the
Shall I
chair.
actually show the chair? Nobody believes
It's an infamous
so-
chair.
Yeah, yeah.
Nathan, that is not a chair. You
That is
sit
a
on that
chair.
for 5 minutes maximum.
It's a mock-up of a chair. Yeah.
Over there is a really expensive chair, which makes my back hurt. This chair, which cost me the sum total of £1 or something equivalent, makes my back hurt never, ever.
Whoa.
So, yeah, I mean, it's
whatever
made for you then.
I know it makes no sense, but I've tried the expensive chair.
Yeah.
And this is nice. Piyush Patel has actually said this is their favourite subject, is talking about health and health, staying healthy. So top tip. I really like that. Oh, look, Paul Lacey's added a comment. He's my friends. What do they do, Paul? Do they make chairs or something?
Leo Mandel also had a good point. I had a discussion with him, or a conversation in the WP Mastery group the other day, to avoid work on weekends, or there's work that stresses you out. So he and I were chatting about avoiding social media on weekends, because that gets you easily in that rabbit hole of ending up in some client work, basically, or just going that uphill with negative comments or something like that.
So I'll just add to that, and Leo knows about this. I keep Shabbat, which means that for 25 hours, I completely, among other things, right? It's a whole thing, but one of the things is we do not use anything electronic. So from Friday night sundown to Saturday night sundown, I don't have my phone, I don't have a laptop, nothing. I'm completely disconnected. And I feel like it allows my brain to regenerate, and it refreshes me, and it energizes me, and then I'm ready to face the next week. If I didn't have that, I would literally never stop working and never stop being connected. And I think that's not good for my brain. It's not good for my well-being. So I take that very serious, very kind of harsh break, and it does wonders for me. So I'm totally with Leo on that.
Oh, good. Paul, I'm going to return to your little comment there. So what is this a friend? What do they do? What is theconvert.com?
See if you can click the link and share the screen, because I
can't actually click the link, but I can type it in. konvert.com, yeah?
Yeah. Convert.
I'll share my screen. Convert. Oh, it doesn't want to work. Did you build the website, Paul?
No.
Is it?
Is it accessible?
Yeah. No. Oh, sorry. No, it's me. It's me. I haven't put the at the beginning. That is entirely my fault. I apologize. Okay, let's share the screen. What are we looking at?
It's
sit there.
Hand built these desks. Like what Jan was talking about, the ones that you put that on top of your desk, and then you can raise or lower it just using these.
I see.
That's an ingenious approach. That's super cool.
Yeah, this guy is my old friend Woody. We used to work together in like 1999 in a .com and everything. And he's a super good photographer, super good designer, product designer and stuff. And he's done this as his new thing for the last couple of years.
Oh, so, nice.
It's really cool, isn't it?
How on earth did we segue into wooden furniture? But there you go. That's brilliant. Ronald says, he loves the standing desk. That's great. And Piyush says gets up every 2 hours for a 5 to 10 minute walk, which, I really should do more. Vito just makes the nice comment that your chair is just horrible.
I'd like to share how I've made my life a little bit healthier, because I was not at all. I was inching towards the age of 40, and I realized if I don't do something, my body's not just going to necessarily take care of itself. Like when you're young, it does, but then at some point you have to start making an effort. So I started running. I used an app called Couch to 5K.
Oh, my wife uses that. Yeah.
It's awesome. In the beginning, you think you're going to die. You run for 10 seconds and you're like, oh my God, where's the ambulance? I'm having a heart attack. But then you really can run. And I've kept it up. I think I'm running like 3 or 4 years in now. I run 3 or 4 times a week in the morning. I'm lucky my work is flexible enough to do that. I get my kids to school and then I usually run then. And it's good for me mentally and psychologically. There's something about it that's really good for your spirit. And it also enables me to sit more during the day, because I'm a little bit ADD. So if I didn't do that, I would be leaping out of my chair all the time, but it gets out a lot of energy, and then I can sit more, which maybe isn't great, but I got to sit. So what can I do? but I do stand up and walk around here in our office and stuff throughout the day. So it's been really good for me.
Well, I'm doing this sort of exercise regime at the minute, involving, there's a little you probably see the seat just over there, an exercise bike, in order to try and do this bike ride that we're doing later in the year. But yeah, thank you. That's really
from my perspective, I've been desperately trying to, everything I can to try and reduce stress, because it's just so overwhelming at times, just general life, isn't it? But I mean, I started, and I haven't done any exercise properly, apart from walking the dog, because we got a dog recently. But I did start the keto diet, which I know Andrew.
Oh, that helps. That helps a lot.
I started that, like, I don't know, 2.5 months ago, and I had to do some calculation just then. I appear to have lost 6.5 kilos.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was
awesome.
just
how much?
I'm on keto for 2 years now.
Yeah.
Really?
That's
like a leg.
Yeah, when you actually weigh what that is to pick it up, it's a lot. In our terms, Nathan, it's 1 stone, basically. So.
Wow.
Oh, that's not as much. I'm less impressed.
Doesn't sound as good then, does it? But
doesn't sound impressive.
Yeah. But your energy levels are higher. Procrastination goes down.
You don't need to eat so often.
That's right. Yeah, you can just drink. And it sounds disgusting, but just put some butter in your coffee in the morning, and you're good till lunchtime.
Yeah. Really?
It's good.
At some point, if you get deeper into ketosis, you will be able to just drop any food completely. When my wife is pregnant right now, so we don't do intermittent fasting right now. Thanks. Yeah. She can't do fasting, so I'm joining her with 3 meals a day. But before we had like 1 big meal a day, and that was totally fine.
Yep.
No hunger feelings whatsoever. It's not for everybody, though. I don't want to encourage anybody to do keto without like diving into the materials.
Wow, honestly, we should start a completely new podcast about health and fitness.
Yeah.
This article, this one here, we're probably not
we're deviating quite a bit.
I think it's interesting though. We probably won't get back to this too much, but basically it's about meal planning and so on and so forth, and mental health and stop snacking and so on. Just as an aside, quite interesting. On my phone, I've installed an app called MyFitnessPal. I believe it's by Under Armour. And certainly in the UK, I'd imagine anywhere in the world, you can scan the barcodes of just everything that you consume from the shop. And the simple process of seeing how many calories each piece of food that you add to the plate adds to your daily intake, it just suddenly made me reduce the amount. So I was saying to Paul earlier, the bowl of cereal, which I have no idea, like it was always quite full, or bowl of muesli or whatever. Now I'm sort of down to like 30, 40 grams, which is like, it's like a palm full. And it's only because I suddenly realized, good grief, that's 200 calories. And that's half an hour on a bike just to burn off that tiny little palmful of food. So that's my tip, is get one of those apps and stick with it.
One last tool that I would like to share here before I let you go on with the next topic, Nathan, is this Aura ring that I've bought recently. I'm a sucker for tech, so I have to apologize. It's quite an expensive ring, like 400 euros or something. But it is the best tracker that I've ever had. Like heart rate variability, the time between heartbeats is what this thing can track. And what is cool is it has a meditation feature included. And I never got into meditating. And just because I now see how my heart rate variability and my heartbeat changes while I'm meditating, that gets me interested enough to try it. And what I see is when I meditate is my heartbeat and my heart rate variability goes to levels that are the same as when I'm asleep. That's how relaxing meditation can be. So that was super interesting for me to see. Yeah. I never would have started meditating if I wasn't able to quantify the results that I'm getting from it.
I only have one question, Jan.
Yeah.
How did you get it out of Frodo's fingers? It is the one ring.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
That's the same like the cap, it's just the one cap.
This is a nice comment. Beth. Hello, Beth. I don't think we've met before. Beth Livingston. I made a cover for my chair that holds an extra pillow in the lumbar area. That's ingenious. Well, it just hangs over the back. Helps a lot with back pain, but I guess I should try standing. Honestly, go to the car boot sale, spend £1 on a chair. Don't do that. That really isn't a good idea. Right, let's move on, because we've got a very important story, possibly the most on-message story of this week, at least. And I feel, what to say? I don't know about this one. Pods, the widely used pods, which is used. How to sum it up, it creates custom post types. It creates all sorts of ways to display different templates. And essentially, if you want to do something complicated with WordPress, Pods was a nice free way of doing it. And it, until recently, was funded by Automatic, the the people who run the WordPress project. And it turns out that they funded 90% of Pods. So it says on this page, which you can find in the show notes, and they're going to withdraw that funding. Now, it says somewhere, here we go, we understand their decision, and this change in sponsorship is on good terms. So, suddenly got an echo. Nobody's fallen out or anything like that. Automatic have simply decided that they want to spend that money in other ways. I guess they've got a lot of, a very healthy, big roadmap. But nevertheless, if you are a user of Pods, I wonder if this is a cause for mild concern, like proper horror. I have not really used Pods other than to see what it's capable of doing. So I don't want to say the word fortunately, because that's not what I'm trying to imply. But I'm going to use it. Fortunately, this doesn't really affect me. But I know that quite a lot of people do. For example, I know that Kyle Van Dusen, I believe he's a user of it because of a comment that he left in the WP Builds Facebook group earlier today. So what do we all think? How do we feel? Is this the right decision? Should they have pulled the funding? Anybody chip in?
We can't know the real reasons, obviously, why they would do that. But there is an article on the WordPress Tavern website, as in addition to the one that's on the Pods website, that goes into a little bit more detail, and it does talk about that the WordPress funding was with an understanding that they would then widen more funding avenues. But they've got a very unique business model. It's kind of almost like a charity, isn't it? I mean, they have the Friends of Pods, which is, so you have Automatic sponsoring them, and then you have everyone else, which is the Friends of Pods. So, for instance, I'm a friend of Pods. I've been sponsoring them for over a year, but I'm only paying like $29 or something a month. So, I've done the maths. Apparently, they have $700 a month coming in from the other sponsors. So, some of that's from me, obviously, and other people. So, based on that being 90%. I think that means that they must have been pulling in around $6,000 a month from Automatic, which would be going to pay salaries of Scott Kingsley Clark, maybe. I don't know if that's exactly where the money was going, but going for they're probably paying for the humans in the team. And I imagine that no one was paid handsomely. I think it was just everybody's just getting, some recognition financially for what they do on that particular business model. So I don't think that Pods is dead, but you can't help but feel some element of panic. I do use Pods. I don't use it as much as I used to, but I think they've got a few steps they need to. First of all, I imagine they've already looked at cutting costs, which is something everybody's used to doing these days anyway. So they're probably looking at cutting costs and slowing down and reprioritizing what's most important for them. So probably fixes over features is most important. They've said that this will slow down the support efforts, and they've got to try and reach their funding goals, which they've set it to try and get around 200 supporters at an average of around $17 a month, which adds up to $3,500 a month. So it looks like they're looking at an income model that only requires them to have half the money for the time being that they needed before. So they may well get somewhere close to that. And there are ways to get money. They've got a couple of options open to them. Everybody's suggesting different things, but I think that some of them are probably very difficult for them to be able to do. On the flip side, you've got, for instance, Advanced Custom Fields, who are just putting their prices from a one-time payment to an annual payment. Then you've got, like I mentioned before the show, we were talking We mentioned that we knew Vito Peleg, who has WP Feedback plugin, and he has priced his plugin in a way that makes sure that he will be as stable as possible. At the same time, you've got all sorts of plugins that probably can't be sustainable on whatever pricing that they're doing. So I think Pods is in a precarious position, but it's also in a position to try and invent a new way of funding that's sustainable and everybody understands. I don't think it will be able to go straight into being a freemium or a premium model. I just don't think that it's got too many years of not being that to go straight into it. So it's in a tough situation. I really feel for the team, because they're probably feeling, whereas a user might feel some panic at this point, imagine what it's like being an individual who's not paid that much to work on this project, but seeing 80,000 or 800,000 people looking in your direction for your next move when you've got to go to work for your regular job as well. So there are options like there's WordPress venture capitals out now, like webventures.io, which is a company I think owned by one of the major hosting companies. I don't think it's Liquid Web, but it's one of the. So there's companies out there that are seeing that WordPress is worth investing in, and then so when a product like this that has so much potential is that it may well get some kind of deal with someone else, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't think it's over, but it's a lot of stress for them right now to figure out what's next.
Yeah. It's interesting, actually, Paul, while you were talking, quite a few comments came in. For example, Vito, talking about the pricing, says that people would definitely buy it. I think he's right. I think he's absolutely right. People would buy it. I'm sure they pay like, for example, then he mentions Toolset and ACF, so there is a pricing model. There's absolutely a roadmap for charging for this. Interestingly, David McCann said, did you see the ad on the page? And if we actually look on the page, I don't know if this is new, if having ads is new, but there's clearly an ad on there now. So maybe that's something that they've hurriedly done to try and shore that up. I'm not entirely sure. Ronald actually made the point that he didn't use it because he thought that it might be more vulnerable because it didn't have that sort of paid there wasn't a full-time team that was getting paid, which is interesting, a really interesting point. If you come from something like Drupal where nobody gets paid for basically anything, then it's entirely it's flipped on its head. And then Peter making the point that the donation money wasn't the reason. It was it's not a stable, as he describes, development workflow. The product is great, but it develops too slow. So maybe the model of being free meant that it wasn't keeping up. So a serious business model. There we go. And Vito, I think, has supplied the answer to you, Paul. In motion. Apparently. Okay.
With regards to the story, so okay, it's easy to say from the outside, and I'm sure it's very stressful for Pods, but in a way, it might be an opportunity for them. It sounds like they have a very passionate audience and group of users, quite large. They just have been doing something in a certain way because it worked and it was comfortable enough, and they had funding on a regular basis, which is very luxurious in many ways. But it sounds like they have something with a ton of potential. Definitely, investors are becoming more aware of WordPress as an industry with a lot of scaling potential, and they're looking with interest towards it. There's the examples you guys gave, and there's other ones as well. They could look at a startup model, meaning they could join a startup accelerator and get some guidance on how to build out a business model, gain access to resources related to their development workflow. This is stuff that I did when I started working on Stratic. It means there's a ramping up stage. It means it's not going to be immediate revenue, but with what they've got going for them and the clearly passionate audience that would be happy to pay them, it's a matter of them, structuring themselves maybe better or in the direction of scaling a business. And it's okay. Like, the WordPress industry has evolved. It used to be kind of not okay to talk about profit in WordPress, right? It was like, oh, money and WordPress do not go together. We do not talk of such things. We are all nonprofits. But it's definitely shifting. It's a huge industry. Matt mentioned some numbers at the state of the word, $10 billion industry, or I don't know, more, or something like that. And there's nothing wrong with making a living off of providing a lot of value for a very large number of people. And again, I know it's easy to say it from the outside, but some of my biggest and best changes have come through very, very difficult times, very challenging times, very down times. And so, I don't know, I'm there with you, Pods. You can do it. I believe you can. Like, you guys are great. You've created an amazing product market fit. You've got down pat. Like, you guys know, you know what your users want, and you can take it now and make it into something even bigger, I think. So good luck. And if you want to talk to me and get any advice about that kind of business model, I'm here.
Nice. That's a nice thing to say. Yeah, so who knows where this is going to go, but it looks, sorry, I just dismissed David McCann's comment or far too quickly for anybody to actually read it. I'll leave that there. He likes your summary, Paul. Anyway, hopefully Pods will be around when we get to the summation of, you know, the WordPress news in 2020. We'll be able to talk about what it is that they did in order to be profitable. That would be nice. Speaking of profitable, let's go to this one. The year in review. This is
what a transition.
Oh, yeah. This is Elementor, who are just killing it. Let's use that word. It's their year in review. As I said at the beginning, there was lots of year in review. You know, here's our plugin. Here's what we did this year. Lots of those kind of articles. But I picked this one just because of the breathtaking amount and depth in it. It's just... Where do you go? 3.5 million installs, something along those lines. They have, I mean, you've just got to look at the features they've added. They've added a pop-up builder. They've added motion effects. They've added their own Hello sort of stripped down theme. They decided to release monthly template kits, and they've kept that going. Table of contents plugins. There's all these other things at the bottom which they consider not to be quite so important. 183,000 lines of code committed in 5,600 code commits. And it goes on. So more than 2 million new installs this year alone. It's installed in 222 countries. The Pro version, and I'm sure that's all of them. Maybe there's like one tiny little country where there's none. And 50% of the features came from user feedback. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. I actually got an email today saying that they're doing an Elementor meetup in London and Manchester, and it kind of gets to the point where if a plugin can have 2 meetups in the country that I live in, that's phenomenal.
Yep.
And it just goes on and on. So, you know, kudos, bravo to the guys at Elementor. They're just absolutely, as far as I can see, they haven't put a foot wrong this year. Everything has been stellar. So anybody want to talk about Elementor, please?
They weren't able to sponsor the summit, so I'm not going to talk about them. Okay. Just kidding.
I've known them because I organized WordCamps in Israel for 5 years. And they were previously an agency, and then they started something called Pojo Themes, and they were like our first sponsors at one of our first WordCamps, and it was like 3 guys. And it's so exciting and amazing to see where they have come to and what they've achieved. And they're very driven and they're very focused. I think one of their biggest strengths that we can all learn from is that they live and breathe their user base. Their user base are website builders and designers, and they are constantly in touch with them through their meetups and other ways. They understand their needs completely. And like they said, 50% of their features come from user feedback. They are truly, truly listening and truly building for each person and their needs. And that's why they've been able to create an incredible product that's growing like crazy. They're growing because people love it and for good reason. So kudos to them. Seriously, they're amazing. And they're also an inspiration.
Beth agrees. She says, I just created a method for creating wireframes with Elementor. Ben Pines wants to write an article about it. Huge Elementor lover over here. That's nice. Thanks, Beth. That's a nice comment. Yeah. Jan, Paul, anything about Elementor you want to add?
No, nothing else than raving and love about Elementor.
Just congratulations to amazing success and leading the way in the way that they're doing. Yeah.
I just wanted to talk about one stat that they put in there, which I loved, which is
did I miss it? Sorry.
Babies were born. The number of babies that were born. They said 6 babies. I just want to say that at Stratic, and our team is a fraction of theirs, we have had 3 babies born
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
You should draw a bar
we're
chart.
getting close on that stat.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
Yeah.
Vito says he's got to go. Bye, Vito. See you next
Bye,
time.
Vito.
Yeah,
Bye.
see you next time. The next one is now. Do you know what? I preface this as possibly one of the most important things that I'm going to say this year. Because over on WP Builds, since we started doing this news, I've had a section called plugins and themes. Well, this week I changed it and I've started now to call it plugins, themes, and blocks, because it strikes me that plugins are going to be a big thing going forwards. It feels like themes are going to become less of a thing, and it feels like blocks are going to become more of a thing. So did anybody get to see this one? This is over on WP Tavern. It is their article basically outlining what it's going to look like to interact with blocks in the future. If you want to read the article, it doesn't take long, 10 minutes at tops, but the brief summary is it's going to be like plugins. You're going to have a blocks area. I don't know if you can see this on the screen. A blocks area in the WP admin sidebar with child menu items, about blocks, add blocks, installed, manage, and reusable. The about blocks one is most interesting to me because it's a tutorial page about how to use blocks, how to design new ones, and how to basically go about building new blocks. And this is new. I think that's really clever. Why not have a whole menu? Like, you want the ecosystem to learn how to do this stuff, put a whole menu item in and float it right at the top so that everybody can see it. Then we go to the add blocks screen, and essentially it's just like plugins. You search for one and install it. From there, you get to see what you've installed. But here's the cool bit. Over here is instances. And underneath it is just a number with a link. And it shows you when you click on that link where on your website that block is being deployed. Now, I think that's really clever because coming from a page builder background more recently, and Paul, I'm sure you can agree, and Jan, I'm sure if you've used page builders, you just like, where did I use that module? Where is that thing? What page did I use that Elementor module or that Beaver builder? And you just forget. And I know there's you can get plugins that will help you to do that, but this is now all going to be built into core. It's pretty limited. They're going to add the capability to like really drill down as to where it's used in the future. You get to manage, install, deactivate, and so on and so forth. And then you've got a reusable blocks section. Same thing. You can see where your reusable blocks are used. So I think this is very cool. Really
That's smart. It's like picking up these global widgets you can do with Elementor.
Yeah. I just think really nice. And this feels like the future. It feels to me, if I don't know, I could be wrong. It feels to me like in 5 years' time we're going to still have plugins, but we're going to be using blocks for just about everything. That just feels.
I think it will be interesting to see how plugin developers react to that, because I'm a little bit afraid that this can create kind of a mess in the WordPress backend. If you have blocks that can do the same thing as certain plugins, like showing like social sharing widgets or something like that, would you use a block? Would you use a plugin? Something like that. And how do you manage that? How do you stay sane with that? So I think that's going to be an interesting ride on how this is developing.
Yeah, interesting. Paul, Miriam, anything on that? If not, we'll move on.
Yeah. For instance, like I like this much better than how it is at the moment. So, for instance, if I take one of the block sets that I've probably used, Cadence, is that what it's called?
Cadence blocks. Yeah.
Cadence blocks. So, you install that as a plugin, and then that plugin has a settings screen where you can, globally set some things. And I don't like that about any of the block sets. But I love the idea of installing tiny groups of blocks or individual blocks. So that, I mean, on this basis, it looks like you could install the Cadence blocks and then turn loads of them off using this facility. But I think that it's going to be quite difficult for people to find the right blocks with the amount of blocks that are going to be appearing in this marketplace. Where do like block sets sit in here? So for instance, I can see one in there. I can't remember where it is. In one of the screens it showed meta slider or something. So maybe does the meta slider block, is it one block or is it a couple of blocks? But I much prefer the idea of individual blocks in a marketplace rather than block sets. I still don't think that it's going to take over page builders, because if this was what I had to work with sites in 2020 and page builders didn't exist, then I would have probably migrated to another system altogether. So even if it looks sort of 3 or 4 years ahead, I can't see that I as kind of design focused would want to be using this kind of approach. This feels like how we used to do things before page builders, when we used to use advanced custom fields with what used to be called, or still is called, the flexible field row. I forget what it's called now. I haven't used it for so long, which was very similar to blocks. But yeah, I like this. Like Jan said, I think it could get messy, but over time, I think the cream will rise to the top, as it always does after a year or so of a bit of a mess.
Yeah. Miriam, anything to add?
It's just all exciting. I mean, before Gutenberg became a focus, and I know it was controversial, I was actually for real worried about the future of WordPress, because it just was so not user-friendly for people who were used to already like a much more robust WYSIWYG type of experience, like a for real WYSIWYG experience. And seeing these types of developments with a pretty decent user experience, in my opinion, they're paying attention to that as well. I know it could get messy, but there's a lot of thought going into it. It's really exciting. I mean, I think it's securing the future of our industry. So thank you to everyone who's working on this.
It's just little baby steps, isn't it? Lots and lots and lots of little incremental, very clever improvements. You know, if you wind the clock back 13 months, more or less exactly, there was just fear and panic, and now I just see some great things happening, and that just looks really cool. Right.
What I have to say is, the first time, you know, when we see something new that gets announced on this site or on other websites, and like, here's the new proposal for this, here's the new proposal for that. This looks ready to go. It looks, in terms of what it's trying to achieve, I can't see what I would change about it or what I would have to complain about it. It just looks really well thought out, like you said. It just looks really...
It's well baked. Yeah, I think they're getting better at that to a certain extent also, as they keep developing new things. We have catch up to do with the page builder like mode, obviously with this native, but baby steps are important, and everything is an improvement. It's good.
I think keeping the whole plugin metaphor inside of it is clever, because it just means less of a learning curve. I mean, it just looks like plugins, doesn't it? What doesn't look like the plugin screen there? It's almost identical, slightly different. Yeah, interesting.
And it makes sense to go with that, because our brains, at least WordPress users, are already, we're used to that. We get it. So it's just, okay, plugins, but now for blocks. And it's really smart.
Yeah, really smart. Like it a lot. Paul, I know that you wanted to, we're running out of time, so we better be quick. But I know that, Paul, you wanted to talk about this article here, I think, the rank maths one, if that's all right. Do you want to dwell on that one for a moment or two?
It was just, I didn't see how it was before, actually, because I tried out rank math for the first time a few weeks ago, because I saw a few people talking about it. And I can see what they've added is that their interface for doing all your on-page SEO is now kind of in the Gutenberg side, the block editor.
There you go. There it is. Yeah.
And so when I tried this plugin out, I was really impressed with the interface. Probably because I was seeing this, I must have seen this already for the first time, so I didn't see how it was before. But I really liked how this was compared to the other plugins that I've tended to use that have all the information underneath the post editor. It seemed like, from as an agency who serves clients, that this was very, very visible to a user to see the problems on their page, and that's what I really liked about it. Really, really easy to use. So we're going to give rank math a go for our next couple of sites.
Right.
It looks really nice. I know they've got plans for a premium version to come out. I don't know what that'll include. Actually, what I hope it'll be like is something like what WP Feedback has done, where you have like a SaaS-based panel, and you can globally control all your different sites. Because Rank Math have put so much into their free plugin, I'm trying to figure out what they haven't given us already. And the only thing I can think of is that when you do sign up for Rank Math, you do have to join their website. So I'm wondering if that's leading towards a nice feature like a SaaS-based board to globally control all of your sites, which would be fantastic if that comes
in the pro version. You know that you're just going to go straight to #1 in Google. That's it. You just pay and straight to the top.
As soon as the website launches.
Yeah, that's it. You just pay the money and.
Yeah, that's exactly how SEO works.
All my clients want that, so I'll just use Rank Math.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, really nice. One of the, and again, I haven't used it in its previous iterations, but Justin, who wrote the article, obviously had, and he was impressed by how much they had stripped out to get the important salient stuff in here. Because there's a lot of plugins still, we're down underneath the main content and we're trying to figure out, we're opening and closing meta boxes still. And I think this is quite nice. I thought Yoast had gone into this panel as well.
They did. Yoast is on the side also.
Yeah. Again, not being a Yoast user, but my understanding is that that's where it was. And increasingly, that's where it's all going. I guess you just got to make little compromises. One thing Justin didn't like was this. He thought this button was just a bit horrific because it's so non-WordPressy in terms of its colors.
It is pretty ugly.
Yeah, it's the wrong color.
The
Okay,
problem
what else?
with that button is that they're one of the first to put that there, so now everybody wants to put something there. So what's it going to look like? Just a strip of buttons.
Yeah,
competition.
The publish button will be pushed off the side so that you actually cannot publish content. Which, it's hysterical. Okay, I probably don't want to focus on too many more of these articles because I know that we're running out of time. So if it's all right, I'm just going to mention a couple of things. The first one is, I know Kyle was listening in. Kyle's got a deal. Kyle has a product called the Website Owner's Manual, and where's the button? There, the WOM. If you go to the admin bar and you click WOM, you can buy his Website Owner's Manual, and it's 20% off at the moment. I don't know if that's auto applied or how that works necessarily, but anyway, I'm just letting everybody know that you can get 20% off Kyle Doozen and Matt Siebert.
Do you want me to explain what the WOM is?
Do you want to sum it up? I mean, I can certainly do it, but you do it. Go on. Yeah.
So if you have a WordPress agency or whatever, and you have clients who you want their websites to stay safe, you want their websites to stay maintained, you want them to stay safe, and you want to be able to communicate in a way to a potential client that this is a good idea to have a WordPress care plan. We're not, because a lot of the time it feels like the client is thinking, are you just trying to fleece money from me? Are
right.
You just get $50 or $100 a month from me for nothing? And what the WOM does is gives you all the emails and a template document that you use in different scenarios and different situations, depending on where your client's mindset is at a particular point. So it's got an email, for instance, for introducing the concept of the care plans at the beginning of a project. It's got how to offboard somebody if they decide they don't want a care plan, and without being all passive aggressive, you can make them understand what is now their responsibility. So it just helps you to give the client the thing that they need and help them to understand that thing without it being a big, strong sales pitch. It just helps that client understand what you're genuinely doing for them for the money that you're asking, and also tells them how they can do it themselves, but clearly makes it quite obvious that that is probably not a good use of their time.
Yeah, nicely summed up.
Brilliant.
I don't know if Kyle's still with us, but Kyle, you owe Paul a creative beer, essentially. I think after that was well done. Speaking of deals, this really isn't a deal, but I'm going to mention it anyway because ACF, the lovely ACF, is going up in price. Now, click on the Pro link over here, and at the moment, maybe it's already gone up in price. Let's have a look. It's still $100 for a developer license, which is lifetime everything, and it's such a no-brainer. It's going up. I forget. I think it's going up to 200. Anybody want to chip in? Is it $240 a year American? I think
something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, it's vastly going up in price. It's going subscription based, and it's going to be more than that fee. So everybody's talking about it. If you've toyed with ACF, you'll know how great it is, and it's currently about to run out. I haven't got anything else to add, really. We did a podcast this week with John Turner from Raffle Press. If you ever want to give away competition, if you want to like a giveaway, we have Raffle Press, a podcast with John Turner about it, how it works, what's useful for, how to set up a good giveaway contest. It's a really good plugin, actually. I use it on WP Builds. In fact, if you go to click this giveaways link, you can sort of see it in action. I think it's this one. Yeah, are we still? Yeah, for 2 more days, you can get a pro license of WP Forms. So you can see it in action there. And that was it. It was a podcast about that. And that's all I've got. I feel if we talk any more, I'm going to need coffee.
Something about WP Forms, by the way, just means as you're telling us to stop talking, I'll just carry on. I think WP Forms is owned by, or at least invested in by that
Syed Bhakti. It's Monster Insights and Optin Monster.
Yeah. Oh, it's owned by them, is it? Okay. So maybe I'm wrong then in that case.
So I'm going to stop you talking now because you're just wrong.
Well, last time I talked too long, my computer shut me off. Actually, didn't it?
Yeah. I need that switch. Actually, I have that switch. Look, remove from stream. Oh, bless him. He's gone. Yeah, he's back. And he's gone again.
This is cyberbullying.
You hold all
talking
the power.
about mental health.
The power over Lacey. That's it. That's all I've got. What we often do at the end. Oh, look, Ronald's saying nice things. Will Miriam Schwab come back on WP Builds again?
Thanks, Ronald.
I'll ask her in a less public way later because she might think I'm never doing this again.
No, my goodness, this was so fun. I'm totally coming back if I'm invited.
Yeah.
Well, so Ronald, tell Nathan to invite me. Yeah. I will be here.
Well, I'll send you a link really as soon as we've finished. Yeah. Okay. What we normally do at the end, though, is just sort of anything that you've got planned this week. I'm basically going to be on that bike. I'm going to be doing a podcast. I'm releasing one this week about, it's the 7th episode in a series that we're doing about Brian E. Thomas's watertight marketing. And it's all about like, how do you prove that you're any good at what you do? How can you prove to your clients that you are actually able to build a website that's half decent? So testimonials, endorsements, all that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm doing. Miriam, what are you up to?
Cool. Oh my gosh. How much time do you have?
till you've run out of breath.
I am, oh my gosh. I can't really talk about what's going on internally in our company yet, but hopefully you'll see good news soon. And then you'll understand why I am working around the clock. Not really. I have kids. I have a life outside of work, but there's a lot to be done now. And it's very exciting. It's all very exciting, and I love what I do. So there's a very general update.
That's good enough. You'll next time you come back, you'll have something pre-prepared.
I will. Yes, you'll have. But I do want to ask you guys: are any of you going to WordCamp Asia and Europe?
I hope.
Or
yes.
I'm not.
Yeah. I hope I will. I have a ticket. I just have to sort out flights and accommodation, but pretty confident. Yeah.
Great. So I'm going to be there. I'm really excited. And there's going to be a bunch of us from Stratic there as well. Super excited. Never been to Thailand. So anyways, this one's now. So, okay. So we'll meet up there.
The jealousy from the left-hand side of the screen is tremendous.
Don't kick us out just yet.
The smugness from the right-hand side of the screen.
Not smugness. A little bit.
No, it's so fine. Excited. We'd all love to go. That sounds wonderful. I'd love it. Paul, what are you doing this week?
A couple of things. I'm clearing out this office because I've got a new office to move to. So that's why I moved it just before the show. There's all the junk that I've tried to put out of.
Wow. Out of you.
So I'm doing that. And also I'm doing a talk next week at the WordPress meetup in Cheltenham.
Nice.
Which is on the 15th. Wednesday the 15th in Cheltenham, I think at 6:30. So hopefully that's the right time. Ronald will tell you because he's the organizer. I should know as well, obviously. So I'm doing a talk on content personalization with WordPress there. So I need to do a bit of prep for that. It's a similar talk that I did in London anyway. Other than that, getting back into the swing of things with work because today was my first official day back following the holiday season. So lots of emails and tax and stuff like that.
The fun stuff.
That's coming up, isn't it? Oh, in the UK, it's ever so soon. We've got to pay those bills. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Don't remind me. Jan, I'm going to get it right. Yes, there.
Yeah.
Jan, what are you up to this week?
I'm working on the next summit, actually. will be related to e-commerce. So that's going to be exciting. Other than that, Lee Jackson got me into trying Airtable for managing projects, managing tasks and data and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, usual client work besides that.
I love Airtable.
Yeah, Airtable is.
Yeah, I'm falling in love with it day by day. Yeah.
Such an amazing tool.
Yeah.
Completely unrelated. Watch on Amazon Prime The Expanse season 4. If you like sci-fi.
Okay.
Really?
Very cool. Yeah. Don't watch season 4 if you haven't watched seasons 1, 2, and 3. But if you, sorry, that was stupid. If you like sci-fi, it's so good. No lasers. The Expanse. It's such a good plot.
I just finished watching. I just finished watching. I mean, this is more like from my world, but The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Amazon Prime is amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying,
super good reviews, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Too much good telly. There's another podcast, the Good Telly Review. Right, just before we go, Kyle, I did put it up, but didn't mention it. He went out the room, and then we talked about his product, and then he came back in, and we'd finished talking about it. Kyle, you don't want to know what Paul said about it. It was awful. No, it was very complimentary. He summed it up beautifully, and I said you owed him a crate of beer. Right, that's all we got. Thank you to Miriam Schwab from Stratic, Paul Lacey from the Dicky Bird Studio, and for Yancock from WP Mastery. I want to say mastermind every time.
I should probably start one. Yeah.
Yeah. How to do summits really, really well.
Yeah.
I'm going to pause. I'm going to mute everybody's mics, and then I'm going to put the little holding slide on. Then I'm going to stop it. But would you all mind just sticking around so that we can have a chat afterwards? Is that all right? So, right. In which case, I'm going to click this one and say bye, bye, bye,
bye.
Do you?